for Games, a podcast about what's new and awesome in 3D printing for games. I'm your host, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param, and I'm joined by
Christian Sauerman's also known as Seventh Mastery.
Kristen. I
Mm-hmm.
have been absolutely flooded with advertisements like I am every week, but it seems to be extra bad lately. Of everybody I know and their grannies have a Kickstarter campaign with 3D printed awesome stuff in it.
Yeah, it's kind of looking that way for
Yeah.
sure. Or
And
or things to make, paint, or store said
mhm,
said 3D printing things.
over the past week, we've both kind of been like, "Ooh, look at this thing," and then throwing it at each other is like, "This is really cool Kickstarter campaign. This really cool Kickstarter campaign," and it's really dangerous as content creators to go down the Kickstarter hype train because I actually am like have publicly come out several times against the concept of early access games
Mm-hmm.
and Kickstarter gaming is a situation where you use up all your hype before the product is in anyone's hands, and then it putters across the finish line, and either in a bad state or it's out and nobody gives a darn
Because
anymore.
you fatigued your own support base,
Hmm.
and now they're all tired of hearing about it. And now that it's important for people to get word of mouth going, and the product's out,
Hmm.
it's almost like I've lived this before.
And I personally, and when it comes to traditional Kickstarters, have a really bad track record of success. Where at one point in time, I measured it and like I backed like 36 some projects,
Uh huh.
and it was a literal 50-50 on
Oh
did I
wow.
even get my stuff
So
ever.
I will say that
Mhm, mhm,
two ongoing projects withstanding, we could probably
mhm,
both immediately name them. Um, I have only had one failure to deliver anything,
mhm.
and then I have seen um, infamously a couple failures to, like, you didn't respond by date X, you're
Right.
screwed. The worst
Mhm.
one was actually Reaper, oddly enough.
Wow.
They never made the person whole, um, to the tune of about $400. So, and they're big enough that I don't think that should have happened. So that
Mhm.
one still to this day kind of confuses me. But
Right. And honestly, like Kickstarter as a whole in the gaming industry, especially the tabletop gaming industry, has serves a very important purpose for a very certain type of creator.
mm-hmm.
And you've done Kickstarters before
I
for
have.
your products. I've done a Kickstarter before
Mm-hmm.
for No Direction. And so we are not blameless in this.
It's true. It's true.
Mhm.
It does kind of become an interesting question of where does this belong,
Mhm.
and especially who is using it for what, because I would say progressively the platform seems to be shifting more and more to a outsourced pre-order system.
Yeah, I'm seeing that, especially as bigger and bigger names enter the space.
Yeah.
Like it's weird when I'm seeing like major game studios kickstarting their next big project launch. I'm going to point at BattleTech, and no shade given to BattleTech or its fans. I love the BattleTech universe. I love all various different BattleTech games, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not even throwing shade on Catalyst for doing it, but I don't think Catalyst needed to do a Kickstarter to launch a new edition of BattleTech.
Probably not. Probably
Yeah,
not.
yeah. And it's like, I think it's like one of the best funded gaming Kickstarters of all time now.
Right.
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
When I look at companies like, we have
Hmm.
friends who work for both Legendary Games
Hmm.
and Cobalt Press,
And I've
and
done work for Legendary Games.
I would say, and I've
Hmm.
worked with people from Cobalt Press
Hmm.
on my own products. But I would just say, you see that level of success, and that paradigm seems to me to be what it was intended for.
Hmm.
Like the
Yeah.
small company that really can't do without it.
Right.
Maybe there's a question of Cobalt Press becoming successful enough, but like they're going to do Tales of the Valiant, which we really wish was still Black Flag. Um, I'm planning on going ham on that. I think they're great people, and I'm
Hmm.
excited about the project.
Hmm.
but because that's going to be a risk, I see why Kickstarter, right? I get
Right.
that.
Yeah. And,
Um,
and 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 that's what I was hinting at is Kickstarter is important to the industry because first, a lot more companies than you all think is really just one or two people exchanging emails to each other pretending to be a big company or a company at all.
maybe 4 or 5 in a really quote unquote big company. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like the biggest gaming companies you can think of are companies like Hasbro, which is
Mm-hmm.
like publicly traded and has a decent sized staff.
Yep.
Though I will point out that at one point in time, Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition had 4 people. 4 total. Then you have like the next step down is Paizo with like under 100
Yeah.
of people working for their company. And then the next step down is even like
Sub
Catalyst and stuff. It's like,
sub dozen.
yeah,
Yeah.
like less than 20. And even those people are considered lucky in the industry where most companies that you see a booth at Gen Con, if they have one full-time employee and it's
Right.
not just a side gig for people, I would be surprised. And I'm admit I'm coming at this from a position of privilege, working a full-time position in the game industry. But it's just like just the reality is the game industry, the people that make your games are operating in a much smaller scale than you think they are, like
Mm-hmm.
incredibly much smaller. The which is more props to them to be able to keep making these very professional looking, very awesome like artwork filled products on store shelves that rival anything you can buy from anybody. Is a great job what is possible with small teams these days. And Kickstarter forms a very important thing because what else is missing in the game industry at the tabletop level is capital.
Sure.
There's not a lot of it going around. And if your name isn't Matt Mercer or Dungeons and Dragons or Warhammer, you are not getting a ton of outside investors willing to come and risk millions of dollars on a crazy idea. So if
Sure.
you want a cool game like Flamecraft to come out, which was a really cool board game based off the Art of Sedana about helpful little cute dragons that help a town out, awesome, amazing game, would not have been just funded without a Kickstarter happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is interesting to note it's created a tier of professionalism and quality that
Mm-hmm.
people can achieve that does make them look a lot better
Mm-hmm.
than the potential one bad release away from disaster that they might be.
Yeah.
And
And,
yeah.
and in 3D printing, Kickstarter is incredibly important.
Oh yeah.
Early 3D printer Kickstarters helped get some of the first printers out there and help popularize it and make it accessible. Early 3D printing Kickstarters for files like like the Dragon Lock system from Fat Dragon Games. Again, disclaimer, I used to work for them, but it was, you know, a lot of the what established the early 3D printing success stories happened on Kickstarter
Mhm.
and crowdfunding. I'm going to say crowdfunding in general, but mostly
Sure.
Kickstarter but there is Frontiers in My Mini
Yep.
Factory that's
Frontiers.
playing a bigger and bigger role.
Very, very small Indiegogo and
Mhm.
couple
Game
other.
Found.
Yeah, Game Found.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and also like I understand that for various reasons, some people prefer not to deal with Kickstarter specifically. And do keep in mind that I understand and can respect that decision if it comes into, but it is the biggest game in town, and it's one of those situations where you need to have a good reason not to be on Kickstarter if you're not going to be on Kickstarter.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunately it's kind of like you need a good reason that your supplement isn't for 5th edition if it's not going to be for 5th edition.
Yes.
Sorry, was that a
That's
little
okay.
bit too close to home,
No,
Kristen?
no, no. It's a barrel I've been looking down for quite a while. But on the flip side, fifth edition's now diversified, and there's such
Yes,
an open gaming movement
I am
behind it.
really looking forward to Gen Con this year. It's going to be wild.
It's going to be pretty interesting. I am excited for all the new efforts. I really hope we don't get too much spreading out on the pan and
Mhm,
getting some very cool creators that have done very well in the 5e space and in
mhm,
the OGL space going to become too niche
mhm.
and then suddenly, lose their own audiences would really make me sad.
I think we have room for one successful candidate out of the pool, and I'm not going to count Critical Role's effort because the celebrity game always does exist in this market as long as the celebrity is supporting it. But I'm talking about a non Critical Role, non celebrity version of 5e. I think there's room for one alternate to exist in the space.
Yeah. I mean, my money is on probably Tales of Valiant, but we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how it goes.
If they had only waited a week and to know that that name needed to be something else.
Mm.
Because, like, yeah, if you're going to order the Valiant RPG, you need to make and you be
Yes.
real careful which one you order.
I think it's funny because it was such a, counter movement, if you will, a
Mhm.
little bit of a insurgency slash, the pirate vibes felt good.
Mhm.
I suspect as a RPG creator myself,
Mhm.
the pirate association with other activities probably felt bad.
I mean, look how successful Freeport was. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
pirating and RPGs go hand to hand.
And how many times Freeport was successful.
Yes.
That's the other thing.
Speaking
Like,
of successful Kickstarters, oh
yeah,
my
I think I
God.
own 3 of them and it's not even half.
They do another one, I'll still back it. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
seriously, they tell me they're bringing this out for 6th edition or Tales of the Valiant. I'm on board. I'm going to buy it again.
Yep.
But what about 3D printing's role in the tabletop space? Because right now I'm seeing a huge spike in the amount of 3D printable Kickstarters. I think what we are seeing right now is I think I'm getting ahead of myself, but I think we're seeing so many new ones
Mhm.
because um, the landscape has shifted where at first there were a few successful 3D printing Kickstarters, but 3D printers were not quite yet mainstream enough, and they're still not mainstream,
Sure.
but now they're definitely exploded a little bit the last few years. And then when that explosive happened, the successful formula that everybody saw that was really good is the monthlies, like the monthly subscription options, your monthly Patreons, your independent
Sure.
stuff,
Sure.
your Mind Fitting Factory tribes. And that space got real crowded. And also, that space is really hard
Yeah.
to operate in. And I can tell you from experience, that's a rough space to live in because you're always chasing a monthly deadline.
Mhm.
It is the customers are used to getting more and more and more. And as the big companies like the one I work for
Mhm.
continue to get bigger and are able to offer more and more and more, that makes it very hard for the independents to like,
Keep up. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, what is a like they're going to do awesome stuff. I'm not degrading any of them. Like, Twin Goddess has to look awesome and have their unique style because one artist is not going to be able to produce as many minis as a team of 12 artists are going to be
Right.
able to do.
Right.
Um,
Well, and that one artist is going to risk burnout. They're going to
mhm,
risk,
mhm,
making operational
mhm.
mistakes.
Right.
There's just a lot more danger, and I
Hmm.
do think we are seeing this resurgence back to Kickstarters as people do kind of have that choice of like, can I do 4 good Kickstarters a year
Right.
versus doing one monthly release and it just being kind of okay.
Yeah, you're able to slow the pace down. You're able to, like, putting together enough models for a really good Kickstarter is something an artist could do over a period of months. And if your Kickstarter blows out, like those good successful ones, like bring in a what would be considered a decent yearly salary for a single artist
Yeah.
or a small team.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's suddenly a feasible option that isn't the same pressure and also there's less pressure for this to be the insane deal that the $10 a month monthlies are,
Right.
because honestly that price point is kind of crazy and I love it. But like, oh my goodness, if you're a single creator trying to survive on like I don't even know how many you would need to hit. I think 500 or so is about like what you need to live on it. Um, of being able to hit that monthly hit every single month, and you have to offer so much. You, like, look at Epic. Epic's the big one. Like 300 miniatures a month, 4 different sets,
Yeah,
500 poses for every orc.
I haven't
I
added
still don't
Invictus
know
yet, but
how.
I want to, even
Mhm.
though I'm like, there's no way. Like, I can't print all that stuff for
No.
free, you know?
And that is also the thing is like I am noticing that as the user base has matured, and then like we've seen it with us specifically, but I'm seeing the same attitude from a lot of the fans is they're pledging to less simultaneous ones as they realize that you can't possibly print and paint all of them. Even one single creator at the shotgun of minis level, you are unlikely to be able to keep up with just one creator's releases.
Yeah.
Now, not this doesn't apply to the other thing we've seen, which is the boutique model with like a few really high quality,
Yeah.
awesome, unique sculpts that are very artistic and like this
Or
is your
your,
bite the bullet, your twin goddess,
I was
your
gonna say, you even have like your Witch Song or your
mhm.
Midas, where it's $1 for
Oh
one
yeah.
fantastic mini, but it's just one mini, and it's interesting. I think it's a smart strategy because
Mhm.
sometimes I'm like, it's $1. Like, do I
I know.
really want to go bother unsubscribing this month?
Yeah, seriously. That is the truth. Like these sub $5 ones, I'm like, I don't care if I don't like what came out this month or don't need it. I'm just gonna keep that active because I literally will not notice it.
Yeah, like where like, even as like Puppets War, I think I got on their original tier of 6, and
Mhm.
like, yeah, I'm never gonna turn that off. Like,
Why
unless,
would you?
yeah, and it's still incredible content.
Yeah.
Thank you,
I'm
Adrian.
my $8 uh my $8 Titan Forge is never getting given up.
I think I missed out on that one, and I actually didn't keep them this month.
Oh no.
I know. I mean, I'll
Dun
see. I'll
dun
see if I'll make. I'll see
dun.
if I make it all the way through the month without keeping them. Right? Yeah, we'll
That is
see.
a thing that happens. That is a thing. But what we're getting at is that hey, people are realizing this isn't the only option, and even fans are realizing that where you can do a really cool idea for a few dozen minis, or even less or more. We're seeing all sorts of different things, but you can get a really cool idea for this one little campaign that isn't an infinite commitment to being doing minis every month forever on the same sort of format. And I think that's a good choice. And I don't have the same dislike that I have for other projects. Remember, I just said I don't like early access. I don't like pre-order culture. I am always wary of Kickstarters. I know that they're necessary for the industry, but I've been burned by them a lot. The very nature of Kickstarters is a risk in
Hmm.
itself. Um, and I will not say what a lot of people say that you have no legal expectations of getting anything from a Kickstarter because I do know that there have been successful lawsuits to holding Kickstarter people accountable when they are actively scamming.
Sure.
Like if they literally run off with the money, that's still not good. Even if we all know that that's a possible situation that can happen.
Yeah.
But with 3D printing Kickstarters, usually at least for the core set or a good chunk of the core set before you get to the expansions, a lot of that's done before even the Kickstarter launches.
Hmm.
And there have been I mean, I'm pledged to dozens of these where the moment the Kickstarter closes,
Yeah.
even like literally the minute it happens in some cases, I get an
Fulfillment.
email with all my models, or at
Yeah.
least most of my
Or like
models.
everything but the stretch goals the
Yeah,
week after the thing's over.
like
Yeah.
like with one of the STL miniatures, one of their ruin sets that happened. I was like literally the night the Kickstarter ended, I was printing one of the houses.
Yes. Yeah, I've done, or yeah, been printing. I think of the second Lost Souls one, I ended up printing like that day.
Yeah, and I think I'm glad this is a unique part of the culture. So with 3D printing, there's two paradigms. There is the miniatures and model side, so not just miniatures, but like cool things you can 3D print.
Mm-hmm.
like those cool paint set things we've shouted out to recently,
Mm-hmm.
or some of the. I'm gonna go ahead and start pulling up some specific ones that we had linked to, like this very cool Eversong, The Hidden City. You told me you pledged to this one, right?
I did. Yeah, it looks fantastic.
Hmm. And like this looks like an amazing, like an over, like I've seen elven terrain sets before, but like the fact that like this one's overgrown and like could play dual purpose as a living city or just like abandoned ruins that you're exploring, then that's great. Like I love that this has so many possibilities. It looks real cool, and it's the perfect. It's this. This is like one of the perfect ways things to 3D print, because when I see a lot of terrain that's successful in the physical stores, it usually is either it's Games Workshop stuff that is like
Mm-hmm.
very specific to Games Workshop, and
Right.
even then it's usually the ones that are most generically applied to. So like the fantasy stuff is usually generic medieval housing and rocks and trees and ruined towers of vaguely European humanish designs, and stuff that's like dwarven stuff and elven stuff, or specifics. Like we've seen a lot of really cool Viking things come out, and like we see like historicals have more success there because of like fandom really doing. But for the fantasy side, the more you niche down, the less likely it is to be successful in the retail space, like the mass market
Yes.
injection molding slow boat from China market. And so like 3D printing is like perfect, because you can just have this really cool ruined elven village for that one campaign. You're going to go into the ruined elven village, and you're good, and you don't need to have you're not going to need to succeed at selling 10 million of these in order to turn a profit on it.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting because of the digital stuff being so successful, and that paradigm being so,
Mm-hmm.
it's drawing in a lot of people from those monthly markets
Mm-hmm. Keep
that
going.
we're getting used to, very successful Kickstarters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and very like high delivery Kickstarters. And I think a lot of people that maybe aren't coming from the RPG side, or aren't coming from the physical minis or the peripherals side, aren't as aware of, like you said you had about a 50% like success rate.
Yeah, it's not great.
And so I do feel like, there's a lot of our community that is going to probably hit some of these, the add-ons, the peripherals. I don't think, like, for instance, the paint is going to be a problem per se, but there are different challenges to production in Kickstarters, for physical objects, that I think a lot of people who come from the digital file first side of things are going to have to get used to.
Right, yeah.
For
I'm
sure.
I'm very specifically right now talking about the digital stuff. And with the digital stuff, I'm like, I have no hesitation pledging for any of this. So
Okay,
like,
that's really cool with the rocks on top there.
yeah,
That was
I
neat.
really like this dwarven set. This set is the Kingdom of Durik Deep, which is, let me pull up the licensor. Kingdom of Durik Deep, which is like really cool dwarven city, which has like mine carts connecting the buildings and outer walls, and like cool dwarven statues, and some of the houses are half buried at rock. It is made by. When did Kickstarter take away the thing right here that tells me who made it?
I don't know. It's weird. Oh, is it up top
Tabletop
now?
Game. It's moved it to the bottom left from
Ah,
Tabletop Games. Tabletop Games. So even though I've never heard of Tabletop Games, I would feel no hesitation pledging for these cool freaking dwarf models, like, because for my 3D printing software side of things, I don't think I've had a fail. Like
well, and
sometimes
given
it takes a little bit, but I've never not gotten my models.
given the examples of actual physical product that they've posted, I mean,
Hmm.
while it's possible that's a render, I am 99% sure those
Yeah,
are
this
painted,
is yeah.
printed things.
That
One
is
thing,
key. If you're right, that is key. I want to see physically printed successfully versions of your product that has been painted. You do not have to be a Golden Demon winner painting. This is just dry brush on black paint and it looks fine. I
yeah,
know that that's a real thing.
yeah. Another thing I would also say, if you're kind of getting into these for the first time, when you do find that creator's name up there on the left,
Mm-hmm.
click through to their profile and see how many they've backed and how many they have made. I'm not saying never support a first-time creator, because I very much think first-time creators need people to back them. But if you click through to the creator on it, you will see how many. I think that's just a category there, isn't it?
Right now, that link is not working.
Okay.
But
Anyway, but when you go through and look at that, you should be able to find it somewhere on their profile, and you can find out how many times they have launched projects and how those have fulfilled. But more importantly, you also can see if they back a lot, because if they back a lot, they understand how Kickstarters work more, I find.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone's in double digits on both those things, they're probably pretty safe.
Mm-hmm. And on the flip side, about 3D printing specifically, before we get into the cool paint thing, unless that ties into 3D printing, I think it might, because it mentions 3D printing in that link you sent me.
One of them for sure does.
The 3D printing physical stuff, usually printers themselves, but sometimes like cool accessories like multi-filament thread systems, and like there have been. That's when we're back in the you don't know if this is going to happen category. Like even like right now, like there's a lot of drama in the community about whether or not a printer called the Kokanee is as a scam or not. I would recommend watching the Uncle Jesse's video. I am not informed enough to tell you one way or the other, but when it comes to first time company creating revolutionary level technologies, go in with your eyes open and do a lot of research.
Yeah, I remember when we first saw this, I did mention it, and I was kind of excited about it, but at the same time, its price point looked pretty aggressive, and they are completely unknown, like you're saying. So definitely research it out. Make sure you really want the thing before you back something that intensive.
Right. So like, and that's when we are seeing a lot of we're seeing a lot of like traditional hit or miss. There's like a long list of 3D printing Kickstarters that have failed to deliver for various reasons. Either the whole project went sideways for very legitimate and understandable reasons, or just the creator's ghost. And then
Yeah.
who knows? Because physical objects is hard. Physical objects of bleeding edge new technology is extremely hard. So you've got to be extra careful when you're pledging for things like that, which is why I usually prefer to get hype about printers from established companies in the space. Like that's why we're always hype when Elegoo or Anycubic or Ender talk about their new stuff, because they're going to send them to established reviewers. You're going to see like your Uncle Jesse's get models. You're going to see your Maker Muse get these printers to review and show off. And has somebody who has operated in that space of being a professional reviewer.
Yeah.
If a company is willing to send a reviewer their thing early, it's usually a good sign that they're confident in it.
Yeah.
And that it's more likely to succeed. I say more likely because there have been instances of them sending prototypes to reviewers and still just it was the one, or the reviewer got like a super hyped up special version that
wasn't the standard release.
Not representative. So you still have to be careful. But like I said, when you're doing your research, look for established, respected content creators that get early access to it. If you see a company being dodgy about like sending their things to the normal list of people and like maybe only giving it to a YouTube account that has 1,000 subscribers, be extra careful.
That's just odd. We'll say that is odd.
Yeah, that's odd and throws a lot of alarm bells off in my head when I see that sort of activity. Honestly, like from the marketing side of things, sending stuff to creators is almost always an incredibly well used marketing budget, because let's say I'm being marketing for a new RPG book or whatever,
right?
And I send a review copy to famous YouTuber. let's go say it's a Pathfinder book, and I send it to No Nat Ones, big Pathfinder YouTuber, and two people buy that book because they watched that video. I have made back my marketing cost for sending that book away.
Sure.
So like it's the bar for risking versus reward for sending influencers product is very low. And that's why you see that happen a lot. Now on the flip side, I don't want to send out a book I'm not confident about into a respectable critical reviewer if I know it's bad, because then people go know it's bad. Unless I'm playing the it's so bad it's good card, which is a fun card to play.
I don't know that I've had a ton of experience playing that one, but I mean, either that or I'm incredibly delusional.
I've only done it, leaned into it when for the college, when boy these professors do not know how to talk to kids, so we're gonna lean into how out of touch and cringe they are, and that was a successful campaign.
Yikes, but cool.
Yeah. And I'm glad that they were game for it. Like the professors didn't get mad when we did it, so it was like, okay, good.
Well, usually if they're super cringe and out of touch, they probably wouldn't even notice that it wasn't sincere. Anyway.
Another type of Kickstarter I'm seeing is the re-release Kickstarter. Because, listen, these companies have giant back catalogs of models that they've released. And Asgard Rising does really good with this. Like, they do really great. And if you were not part of the pledges, like if you were not there to get the Asgard Rising stuff as it was coming out, because honestly, like if you're coming in now in the market, like 2 years of product from all the major creators have covered a lot of the ground that people are going to want. I'm getting some really weird noise from your mic, Kristen. Kristen?
Sorry, I lost my audio for a second there. That was really strange.
Yeah, it switched microphones on you.
Odd.
Yeah, so sorry for the technical hiccups here. And so what I was saying is we will be talking about, in the news section, we will be talking about Mantic. Holy crap, we have to talk about Mantic.
But we still have more Kickstarter stuff to talk about.
Yeah. But so like Asgard Rising, where if you weren't there for the original pledges, sometimes they will like repackage up like the army, like if they did an army or a cool set or a bunch of D&D stuff or RPG stuff, they'll take a bunch of their previous releases, package it up into a Kickstarter-like chunk, and launch a Kickstarter for people to get it at still a good bargain all at once. Also, the Kickstarters are a little bit less of a good bargain than the monthly
usually
pledges.
Although I do think that's weird to me, because it does seem like there's definitely some space for I've seen some that are much more affordable when they come out on Kickstarter, and I question the paradigm, like whether or not they try to make it cost more still. I don't know, it's weird.
But I do like that format because first, more money given to the creators, more opportunity for fans to get stuff they may have missed. It's a good way of getting product out there that would otherwise just sit on my mini factory getting bought occasionally, one model at a time.
Right.
Whereas like, honestly, like Asgard Rising releases that really awesome Ruin set almost every time they put a Kickstarter. And that Ruin set, by the way, is worth the entire cost of that Kickstarter to get.
Any of their Kickstarters, pretty much, yeah.
So getting that really awesome modular Ruin set that Asgard Rising makes and is the reward. And like the cool freaking goblins or undead Vikings or whatever it is this week that they paired it with is just the bonus. But the bonus is still pretty awesome.
I think that's still to date the most FDM printed thing I have is that set of modular.
I think most I've done is from Lovecraft stuff. I've done so much of Lovecraft's like the Frost Haven stuff that they've done, and also their village set, and I forgot the name of it, but just like their medieval village set, I've printed like so much of those buildings. In Lovecraft, anytime they do a Kickstarter, I'm just going to honestly, I just need to wire my bank account information straight to me in Lovecraft. It's just automatically charge me for the all-in tier when it hits. I'm just gonna get it. I'm
It
gonna
is
get it.
interesting that a few of them have become like affiliated projects
Mhm.
that aren't actually his projects.
Oh yeah, and then they get the DMCA takedown because they
That
used
was only
Hobbit in the name of their
that was only
company.
the once though, right?
I mean, yeah. But, like, come on, people. Do if you're going to if we have any creators listening, and I do know we do because they're in chat right now. Y'all are awesome. Uh, do read up on your intellectual property law at the very least, and I as a creator, I have to tell you, you should talk to a lawyer, uh, because that is not a space you want to be at wrong in, and it's a space that too many creators come in not knowing that they about to enter a world of hurt of Disney lawyers until they are faced with Disney lawyers.
I am still stunned at some of the 5e Kickstarters that go under the radar where I'm like, this is not okay. I'm glad y'all made it, but like you could have had a bad day.
Yeah, I'm not even coming in here assuming malice on this case. It's just like, I do know for a fact, working in this industry as long as I have, that your average customer does not understand intellectual property law at all.
Oh, sure.
And like half the time, they don't understand the difference between a trademark and a copyright. And
Well,
uh,
and with examples of like the OGL stuff where
mhm,
99% of the monsters, probably more like 90, but a whole bunch of the core catalog of a lot of these games is, open, and now even Creative Commons, some of them.
mhm.
Um, but you don't know there's that 1 out of 10 that's like you can't use any bit of that.
Right. If it was featured in the D&D movie, you should double check because almost everything in that movie was ones that they had trademark on.
Unless it's on the poster and it's a intellect devour that uses Paizo's art instead.
Still cannot believe that happened. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad Pathfinder 2 is doing so great right now because Pazzo needed a shot in the arm.
I am excited and confused by the remaster stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It looks interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting rid of alignment though, which seems like a
Mm-hmm.
weird thing to do because they claim that it's going to be the same game. But I'm like, okay, champions as a class, what?
Yeah, PF2 relied on alignment a lot less than PF1 did, though.
Well, and so does 5e, right?
Mhm.
But
So I can see how it's possible. They're definitely going to have to do some work on Champion specifically.
yeah.
But you had another Kickstarter that you wanted me to look at, and that was
Well,
Paint.
and it's more of a okay, so I have to say we haven't been really responding to chat because we have James, we have Alberto, we have Alex, we have Lord Novas, we have David Wickham. We got a whole bunch of people in chat, and a couple of them have been mentioning some of these Kickstarters, and I deliberately didn't respond because I didn't want to respond like out of turn. But the two that we're talking about here would be this one, Ultra Acryl. Is a new paint Kickstarter, and it looks pretty fantastic. The color range, these are ultra pigments. So like we talk a lot about speed paint on here, and this is definitely the opposite thing. This is like Duncan Rhodes. This is like the hyper pigmented new colors that are coming out from GW. Exceptional coverage, really, really bright. Pro Acryl. Yes. Really quality, solid colors is what it looks like. And it looks like a lot when we talked about Broken Anvils last week. And this looks like a pretty solid value. But this is one of the reasons I wanted to talk about production. Yes, it's really bright colors for the most part. But they have some good bases too. But the thing I wanted to drive home when we talk about paint, because this is clearly there's a lot of companies getting into this. There's a lot of success. I don't think this is something to be afraid of on any level. But, and I mean this very clearly, Kickstarters are batch created things. They are made all at one time for the most part, unless you have a relaunch. But even so much can change between initial release and relaunch. You want to buy this if you want to buy this, because it's probably the only time you're going to ever see it like this.
Are you endorsing FOMO?
I a little. I am saying right now, do your due diligence on research for what you want, because I couldn't possibly afford all of these paint Kickstarters that are out right now, and some of them look incredible.
Mhm.
But what I am letting you know is you're probably never seeing these exact paints again. Um, Even big companies like Army Painter in their speed paints are starting to reformulate. Another big one, Turbo Dork.
Mhm.
Um, Very clearly, I actually emailed them about a color I wanted some more of, and they were very, very upfront that, hey, we reformulate every big batch creation, and it's not going to be exactly the same, especially with like a color shifter or some of the more unique tones. And so when you get something like this, yes, I don't think they're high risk, but you're going to have that chance to get it, and then that is the one thing of that pink you're ever going to have, probably.
Mhm.
Now, maybe they're going to blow up and become an institution, and Ultra Acryl 10 years from now will be on every game store shelf paint rack. I just doubt it.
Yeah.
um, and it looks fantastic. Like those, if the marketing material there and the swatches are the actual pigmentation, actual colors, they look incredible. But know that little bottle, and like, I don't know the exact volume, unfortunately, off the top of my head. I probably should have that, but they look very similar to this, in the same size as the Duncan Rhodes ones. And those, like, you can run out of the Duncan Rhodes two thins coats paint
Mhm.
in a single batch painting session.
Yeah. That is a situation, and I haven't had that happen to me with paints because I kind of knew that going in, so I didn't like. That was one of the big reasons I didn't jump on Duncan's sets, because I was like, if this goes well and I start seeing this in game stores, then I'll kick myself. But at the same time, it could just be the one and done batch, like, and
Right.
I'll never get the chance to refill these, and I don't want to get used to a paint line that I like, because that's happened. I've even just Citadel paints. Like, there are certain Citadel paints and washes and stuff that I
Hmm.
desperately loved as a painter. Azure and Blue, I it's gone now.
Yep.
It got reintroduced as a contrast paint, and it's not the same thing anymore. Um,
Pale sand.
you can still get pale sand.
It's hard though, and especially, I don't know about you, our restock locally.
Mhm.
Oh, don't go get your bottle of pale sand. I
My
have a
my
horde.
4 bottles of pale sand.
I have a horde of pale sand for the same reason.
I have 4 bottles of pale sand.
I might have four. I might have,
Oh my
yeah.
god, you might have
Anyway,
8. You've got 20, right?
no, I don't think I have 20, but it is
Oh.
like when those beholders came out, the
Mm-hmm.
from the Nolzers. I might have got, like, all of them.
But where I have had this happen to me, and this led me into paralysis, is I jumped on the Squidmar brushes.
Yeah.
Which are awesome
Hmm.
brushes with wonderful sable hair and
Hmm.
exactly perfect for miniature painting. And I even went extra and got the complete set, like all
Hmm.
the extra brushes on top of that in the cool little tin. And I haven't used it because I'm scared to death of using it, because brushes are a consumable object,
It's true.
and I don't want to use one until I'm sure I can replace it.
Yes, I did the same. Ghost
Mm-hmm.
Fine. I got
Mm-hmm.
the Ghost Fine micro detail brushes, and I've used them twice.
Mm-hmm.
And I even bought an extra set. I call it the crayon box effect. I have to have my, like, perfect unspoiled one so I
Mm-hmm.
can use the one I'm actually going to use, because I always know that I can go back to it. But without that, it's that paralysis, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And,
And
and
it,
David mentioned that I got the big paint box. I was gifted that by my friends Aaron and Vanessa,
aw.
so it was.
Unfortunately, as far as paintbrushes are concerned, this hasn't do nothing to do with Kickstarters, but because of the import ban on Sable,
Hmm.
Kolinsky Sable, it's getting hard to. I thought I found the sheet out, and I started getting Windsor Newton Series 7s,
Hmm.
and I used it, and it really is everything they tell you. It's like it's so glorious to paint with one of these, and I was going to be like, well, these only cost me like $16. when you can get them like regularly on decent prices, like 16-20 bucks a brush, and they'll last me as long as I take a little bit of care of it, not even like the hyper paranoid care of it. If you take hyper paranoid care of a brush and like do all the things you're supposed to do to take care of a brush and wash it after every paint session, you can make one of these last like a year. But even if you're a little bit rough on it, you can make one of these last 3 or 4 months of regular daily painting.
Right.
And 20 bucks for every 3 or 4 months, whatever, sure. And I was like, I'm going to switch over to these. And now you can't get them. And so I've got like 3 of these in my little paint drawer here, and it's still in the little tubes, and I'm desperately afraid to even use another one because I'm like, what do I do? And also as a US painter, if you are an experienced painter in the listener and know the solution here, where are we going to get good brushes if we can't get Kolinsky Sable? What am I supposed to go get instead?
I don't know. Like half the time for me, I end up just going and buying a brand new craft store brush and just using it a couple times because I know it's going to crap out on me.
David Wickham in chat, that's worse than not having a brush, and I agree with you because I'm sitting on like literally $100 jar of brushes and that I won't use because of irrational fear. Realistically, I should just be using the crap out of these and then switch over to craft store brushes when these are gone and just enjoy the thing while I can, because it's not like I'm going to go scalp Winsor Newton Series 7s on eBay, which though by the way, people are doing that. I don't want to pay 80 bucks for a Winsor Newton that I should be able to get for 17.
C Catlet says they have a source.
Ooh, thank you, C Catlet. Thank you very much. P&D Mac, who wants to go in on a sable farm with me so we can corner the domestic brush market. P&D Mike, you've got the great idea. And Alex Schindler.
You can start a Kickstarter. Harvest brushes.
Oh, and Alex Schindler chiming in on Goblin Green Rip. For those of you that do miss the classic Citadel paints, there are several companies now that are doing retro throwback sets. I know that War Games Paints does a really cool retro throwback set that is a exact match for the Learn to Paint kit that Citadel put out in the 90s. And Coat d'Arms, which is the company that actually made those paints in the 90s, has a set. You can just order their gamer paints that are those exact paints with the serial numbers filed off when they had to rename. So instead of, you might be curious as to why there is a Hunter Green called Angel Green at first glance, and it's because it was called Dark Angel Green, and now it's just Angel Green. And similar, Goblin Green is just called Goblin Green because you can't trademark Goblin Green, and so on. But Coat d'Arms is where you want to be looking for those retro paints if you want to paint like it's 1993.
Speaking of painting and other Kickstarters, there also is that Chimera colors.
Oh gosh! Oh man, I'm so tempted by Chimera because it fits. Because you were talking about what it's like when you can't get the color you like, and I'm that jerk who doesn't need them because I can color match perfectly by mixing.
You are kind of a jerk. But
I'm sorry.
I've seen the proof though. Your undead that have that mist blue glow. Not only did you manage to get the same colors multiple times, you also managed to do it with multiple techniques and get them to look like they matched. I was very impressed.
From different paint brands.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I wasn't even using the same paints to mix it every time. I was just like, I need something that is this desaturated light teal green.
The Chimera thing is weird to me because it is physical minis also, and
yay,
and a palette, and it looks like pretty much a la carte. However you want to do it, those paints aren't cheap.
No. So Chimera colors, if you're not familiar, they have a very limited palette, though they are really expanding it lately. But when they launched, it was like, we have 20 colors. And
Mhm.
they are, and they're named via their artistic paint names. This isn't Goblin Green or Dark Wizard Purple or Plague Bearer Flesh or anything like that. It's like, this is Burnt Umber.
Yep.
This is Raw Umber. And
They
they're
have
stupid high pigment count.
they have 14, by the way, and you get two of each, which I thought was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get 6 signature blend sets as well.
Yeah, and the Chimeras leans into the miniature painter that is going to mix their own, and the paints are single pigment paints for the most part, which means that they are going to mix together well. Because if you like were to grab a bunch of Citadel pots, like and try to mix with Citadel paints, this is Param paint. This is paint I mixed together with my own pigment. Never mind. But Citadel paints, they a lot of game paints use a ton of different pigments to get their exact color mixes. And if you mix these together, those pigments do not always mix together like you think they are. And the more you mix together, the high likelihood that you're just going to get brown.
You're gonna get
You thought
mud.
you thought you were going to get lime green, you got baby puke.
I have lived this truth, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. So single pigment paints are great. That's why. That's one of the other reasons we love Pro Acryl is most of those paints are single pigment or two pigment paints, and they advertise what the pigments are, so you can look up in advance if they aren't going to mix well. But I haven't even had to do that because they were smart people and they use pigments that mix together well. And so when I grab, that's why I like Pro Acryl so much, is that I can just do all the slap mixing I need to get exactly the paint I want, and I know it'll work because I'm not going to accidentally get baby puke.
Yeah. All of my local stores finally restocked their Pro Acryl, so I'm a happy boy on that level.
And right now, actually, this is kind of a renaissance era for paints because if you're unfortunate, for most of America, and I cannot speak to other markets, but for most of America, and I've intentionally toured around game store to game store to get a survey of this stuff. You're either going to get Citadel or Army Painter or both. And then if you're in a really good store, you're going to get some of the others. But if you're your average comic book store that has miniatures in the corner or sells D&D, you're going to get either Citadel or Army Painter, and that's it. And so it's kind of hard to like even getting Pro Acryl is hard in here in person. You're going to be ordering that online for most people in America. If you're really lucky, they've got a Vallejo rack, and Vallejo is gloriously high quality paint. If all you can get is Vallejo, you are in a good situation. That stuff is affordable and awesome.
I feel so spoiled. I literally can tell you a street that from going from 9800 South to 94 South. So we're talking 4 blocks. That every one of 3 hobby stores in those 4 blocks has at least 2 of those brands.
Oh, I've got the one hobby store that has the entire Army Painter range, but that's it.
Yeah.
And I have the other hobby store that has an incomplete Citadel range that is getting smaller because they're getting out of it.
Yeah.
And those are my 2 choices. I have a third choice that is not really a choice, which is there's a Hobby Lobby I could go get Vallejo at, but I ain't about to cross that picket line. For those of you who do not know, I'm very gay, and Hobby Lobby is very anti-gay.
Yeah, I unfortunately don't have to make that decision because, like I said, I have 3 hobby shops on one little street, and that's just one street of many, many hobby shops in town. So
There's a store called Dave's World that's 2 hours from here. First, awesome name for a game store, Dave's World. I dig it. The banner is tie-dye. Really great. It's in Jacksonville, Tennessee. It's 2 hours away from my house. every paint I could imagine is stocked there, and that's really great. But that's where I would have to go. Or if I want Reaper and Pro Acryl, I could go to the Rusty Scabbard in Lexington, Kentucky, a 3-hour drive.
Yeah, all the game havens, and there's 3 of them, have Pro Acryl here, I think.
Oh, Catlet, what are you doing here? What you doing to us? See, Catlet says, I'm spoiled. My LGS has 5 complete brand ranges on the shelves. What are those brands? And also, where's the what? Shout out to your game store. If they're doing 5 brands of paint, they deserve a shout out on the show. Absolutely, good job. Honestly, yeah. But if all you have access to is Army Painter, we used to that was like the butt of a lot of jokes in the miniature industry, but Army Painter's really been stepping up their game lately.
Michigan. I lived in Michigan for a while. Now I'm curious which store it is. But I liked Michigan's gaming stores a lot, but I have to say St. Paul, the Source, was still kind of my gold standard.
Michigan Toy Soldier Company. Holy crap, that store name sounds amazing.
Yeah, that does sound pretty cool.
I need to go to the Michigan Toy Soldier Company. I'm going to Michigan soon. No, I'm going to Wisconsin. Different place.
Yeah, I mean,
going to different.
Not even kind of the same.
No, not even close. I'm going to Wisconsin. Sorry, I'm going to Tabletop Expo, Tabletop Minions Expo, and if you are in the area, I would love to see y'all there.
How those armies coming?
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be like a weekend of me just furiously painting little scaly men.
I was going to offer to outsource for you, but I don't want to leave you in the lurch. So,
okay, see, Catlet, they have a website and ship. Okay, I'm going to check that out. Absolutely, because I do. This might be an evil thing for me. Is if I'm going to have to order online, I like to order online from small businesses instead of just going to Amazon and getting what I need.
Oh, they're in Royal Oak.
Oh,
sorry. Royal Oak's a great place, at least for brunch.
This episode's going to go long because we have news we have to talk about.
Okay, yes, the Mantic thing.
All right. So for a little while now, we've been shouting out, Lord of the Rings got an official freaking 3D printable mini. Like War Games Atlantic is doing 3D minis, and like 1 billion of them a month. Though they leaned really hard into historicals. Like that seems to be almost all they're doing. Like really hard into historicals. Which is fine because I think they're one of the few people even doing that. If you want the 801st paratroopers, you're gonna have to get them from War Games Atlantic. What is the giggle for, Kristen? What's the giggle?
The giggle is Alex calling me out for switching drinks randomly while we're filming.
Holy crap, you have been. I just haven't noticed. At least it's a Gatorade. It's not like you've got Goldslogger hidden away.
I mean, not currently.
Not currently.
But usually there's 3, and I only have 2 today, so I'm kind of surprised that it got noticed today as opposed to when there are like 3 different things happening.
Yeah. The news is Mantic freaking Games has announced that not only are they going to be doing 3D printing, they kind of told us a little while ago, it slipped out in some talks in some groups, that they were going to do some 3D printing stuff. It was going to be like, kind of like what North Star did, where it's like conversion bits and little supplemental stuff.
Right.
Yeah. They decided not to do that.
Oh.
They have gone full hog in with a monthly STL subscription for Mantic Games. Now, Mantic Games is one of the larger wargaming companies out there. It's they have full-time people and a warehouse and a store and distribute all across the globe. Their most popular game is probably Kings of War. There's also Dead Zone that is pretty popular as a skirmish scale sci-fi game, and they have other war games. Kings of War Armada is a really cool Age of Sail with fantasy boat action, which is nice, and they use big old chunky boats. Like it's not like the little 10 millimeter boats that like I forget the name of the Games Workshop one that was like little 10 millimeter boats,
Right.
or Pirates of the Caribbean used little 10 millimeter boats. These are big old chunky boats that like 4 inches long. It's kind of impressive, which means you can go to town and get some really cool blends on those sails. And I've seen some amazing jobs. So they're doing a monthly subscription option. There's a welcome pack and a monthly pack and free sample minis, and it's like £8 early access, £10 normal. They're out of England, so that's why the
Mm-hmm.
British pound stuff. But if you're a subscriber to their web software, to that's like the army creator for, basically they have a subscription service that you can like get access to all their rules for like a few bucks a month, and all of the for all their games and the army creator app and stuff like that. So like if that's how you want to play their games, you can just give them a few bucks a month and have access to all that stuff and the software to support it. If you're sub to that, which is already like $4 a month, it's $4 a month to get the monthly models on top.
Oh
So
wow.
£8 total, and you've got the software, the games, and their models. And they came out swinging with a pretty good. It's called the Mantic Vault. They came out swinging with a pretty good set of minis right off the bat. The welcome pack has like these little 1 inch tiles of traps that you can lay down that on
Ooh.
your thing for like so it's not just their war games. They have like RPG stuff here too. I'm gonna throw it up on screen for those of you watching us live or watching the YouTube. But they've got like this cool freaking demon with a dice on its back. They've got this weird plant monster. They've got a bunch of sci-fi soldiers and a goblin with a sniper. Their CEO dressed up as a bard for some reason. And they also they are including the conversion bits. So like they have this really cheap like $30 giant kit, and so like they have like conversion bits to turn into different types of giants. So like supporting their physical releases as well as fully 3D printed stuff. And their monthly pack is 2 entire fleets for their boat game. Some of their most expensive miniatures, like the chimeras and the halfling boats, but because they are chunky and have to be cast in resin, they sell these for like $50 on their website for these three. But they know that that puts it out of price range, so they put them into the DLC as a way to get access to them. A bunch of conversion kits for the halflings, and then a whole bunch of terrain. And so they're covering all sorts of their games. It's the same sculpts that you can. They're these literally are the models that they send to get injection molding done. The only criticism I have is that they're not pre-supported. At least they weren't at first. I hope that that changes. Um, so you do have to support them yourself, or
It's not that big a deal, but
yeah. I remember when that's how we always had to. I remember. It's cool that like it's official way. They also said yeah. So Mantic's games are miniature agnostic, so they already were very supportive of the 3D print community, bringing in like it's really it was really one of the hubs of 3D printing communities. Like showing up to official tournaments with 3D printed armies was absolutely okay and encouraged, and people were always fawn over the really cool armies. But there are certain prizes that you can only win if you bring what they call an all Mantic army, which
mhm.
actually is a 90% Mantic army. So you have 10% of your army can be extra or something else, and then as long as the other 90% is Mantic, it qualifies for the Mantic only prizes.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's fair because you gotta look at like the even painting competitions at this point. There's so many bits and conversion pieces that people do that aren't quote unquote official with official mods.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like you can still win the tournament and all that stuff, and you can still win the painting contest. It's just like there's special prizes that they only award to the people who showed up with the Mantic models. So even then, they're being very generous, and they have them fully embracing 3D printing. especially doing it smart, is great. And like they're
Yay.
focusing on things that are difficult for them to supply an adequate or at a price point that for like it's things that were difficult for them to supply, like the kit bash kits to convert your halfling militia into halfling knights, which doesn't always make a very successful retail product. Or it's things like the chimeras, which were we would love for you to buy these physically, but because of how that process goes, they're very expensive, and so they've made a this is now an affordable option for those who have printers. So, yeah. And to answer the question for David Wickham, yes, they are chopped for printing. So all these models come in pieces that will fit on your standard Mars or Photon, the small size 4-inch printers.
Very cool.
Any thoughts on Mantic entering the field?
I hope the trend continues.
Yeah.
I still hold, and not that I really care, because honestly, they're not becoming that important to me. But I'd still think in 10 years, if GW was like finally allowing it, even in 5, I would be very happy, just as a good thing. I don't think they will, but who knows?
No.
And I think
what's gonna
Mantic doing it
happen
is important.
Yeah. Eventually, where I think this is going to be is almost everybody that isn't GW is going to have 3D printing options available, because it just makes so much sense for multiple of reasons. There's products that you could make money on and you could release that just do not make sense at a mass-produced retail scale.
Well, and even like a warehousing scale, like when you can have your whole backlist continue to be active and generate sales without having to physically warehouse it, that is incredible.
Yeah. Or you even if you're not selling the files themselves, you can look at what Privateer Press is doing, which is smart, which is 3D printing the actual product that they sell to people, which means they can get around import tariffs by just opening a print shop or licensing a print shop in your country to print it for you. And that way you don't have to pay the slow boat to Australia prices of
or
the shipping.
The really weird, like sometimes it's more expensive for me to ship a book to Canada than it is for me to ship to Germany.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. Anywho.
So, which company's next? Lord Novus in chat asks. Who do you think's next?
Me?
Yeah. So far, it's Modiphius, Wargames Atlantic, and Mantic for the top companies have entered.
I doubt this, but I actually wonder, and this is going to surprise you maybe. Given the debacle, I would not be surprised if the virtual tabletop construction set that D&D has coming out eventually has a print STL option. It would be too easy for them to do to not monetize, and then since their whole game plan right now is apparently monetize everything, I can't imagine. But they're also technology wise not always known to deliver, so we'll see. But that's I'm going to put $5
like a Hero Forge alternative system. Build out your Dragonborn Paladin inside the D&D thing, and for $5
you can also get it printed.
Yeah, probably. I think that is as likely to happen as anything.
Now that's not till 2025 from my understanding, so will somebody beat them to it? Maybe. Alex says in 5 years GW will sell STLs, but they'll still cost the same amount as the full plastic version.
Yes. Oh my God. They were not going to sell them until they invent a way for it to be single use.
Yes,
you get one Space Marine, and then you have to buy it again. Oh, you have to print it in GW resin on a GW printer. No, it's a Forge World printer.
Yikes.
Which means it breaks, is terrible quality, and costs you 10 times as much. I think Parabellum has a good chance at being the next one to offer some 3D printing support. Like they're having a good renaissance right now. I don't think it can last forever. They are upgrading a lot of what they're doing. They have supply chain issues that could be addressed by this. All in all, like Parabellum makes Conquest, Last Argument of Kings, and the spin-off games for that. They, I think it's like 40 or 38 millimeter scale minis. So these are unusual size. So there's a reason for people to want three. So if I'm 3D printing, I can just scale up a model to fit in that game. But also that does mean that bespoke miniatures available for the game. It would make sense.
Yeah.
Or whoever does. I'm exposing my ignorance here. Song of Ice and Fire. I know that license changed hands, which is why I'm confused. Miniature game. Simon. Are they still making it, or did they used to make it?
I don't know.
They still make it. Okay, Simon. It's a cool mini or not?
I'm still not over the last season of that show. So.
Oh yeah. I'm going to read the book and then I'll be happy.
Assuming the book ever comes out at this point, why bother? He's made all his money. I don't know.
I mean, if nothing else, Brendan Sanderson will come in and finish it for him.
That's the joke, but will he do it? The 12-course meal and violence that we're expecting? I don't know.
Way of Kings is to be considered, probably.
I don't know.
His books have been pretty violent and political lately.
There's also that. Speaking of Kickstarters, I don't know that he's ever going to release. I think once he fills his contracts, we're never going to see him not self-publish again.
Wow. It definitely is working out for him. So I don't know that.
I was at Dragon SteelCon this year, and it was huge.
Mm-hmm. All right, we are running out of steam, so we're going to call this episode now. We are Print Your Games Podcast. I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
I'm Chris Sauer, also known as Seventh Mastery, and don't forget to use your screen protector.